We can get more now and speak to Jonathan Crick, who is the Chief of Communications for UNICEF in the State of Palestine, based in Gaza. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. The Rafah border crossing has now reopened. Aid groups have, of course, been appealing for quite some time for this to happen. What's your reaction to this news, Jonathan?
Well, first and foremost, I would say that it's overall good news. I mean, it's very important for several reasons. First, it's important for the children that I meet every day here in the Gaza Strip and who have been injured by the war. I met a few weeks ago, I met a little girl, 6 years old, who still has shrapnel in her belly. Many children who are victims of the war are in dire need of medical evacuation. And the Rafah crossing allows for them to be evacuated, medically evacuated to Egypt. Then there are also the children who are suffering from cancer, leukemia. We need a heart transplant. And I also met a little boy who needed a kidney transplant. So for all these children, it's a good news. It's an important development, but we also have to bear in mind that the quantity, the number of people who can exit the Gaza Strip to seek medical treatment is for the moment very limited. And we really hope that this number in the coming weeks, in the coming months, can increase.
Right. I mean, there are 20,000 patients in Gaza who are in need of urgent treatment, 4,500 of them reported to be children. Do correct me if you've got other numbers. Is it your understanding that
Correct.
Children will be given priority? And has UNICEF been involved in this whole process of deciding who will be able to cross first?
So the UN agency, which is very much in the lead for the process, is WHO. And it's WHO who are, doctors who are identifying case by case which case are in need of priorities. And we are in regular contact with them in order to also, of course, refer cases to them, and there is no doubt that, of course, the children who are in the most critical conditions will be given priority. What UNICEF is also doing is you have many children who have been orphaned in the war. Some of them are taken care of by their extended family, some of them not. So what we are also trying to support on is identifying legal custodian, people who can accompany the children and who can also take care of them in Egypt. And it's a very important legal aspect. As important as, and I just want to flag this, that it's also very important that the crossing is opening in both directions. That means that the children who are exiting, seeking medical treatment can also come back to the Gaza Strip.
Right, and it is a complicated journey for those who are able to make it. There's 2.5 kilometers of that journey that has to be made, on this narrow land corridor on foot, it would appear. I don't know if you've got other information for us on that, but how's that going to be undertaken by people who are severely injured, if indeed 2.5 kilometers of it will only be manageable on foot?
Well, it's a very good question, and I must say that I don't have the answer. We are receiving the information related to the process and the way it's actually happening little by little. And so for the moment, we don't know exactly how that process is taking place. But it's very important that the security and the safety of the children who undergo this journey with their guardian or their family member is ensured, because this is a place which is a military zone, and it's extremely important that we are making sure that all the parties involved in this conflict are making sure that the children can do this journey safely.
Are you hearing anything about the situation on the border there at Rafah? What are your sources telling you? Is it chaotic? Is it orderly? What's the latest?
from the little information, and we're talking now about something which just ended, so I don't have like the latest, but from the information that we have received, the fact that there is a limited number of people crossing is also something that allows for the movement to take place in an orderly manner. Now, we will, of course, have to see how things are developing in the coming hours, in the coming days, and also to receive feedback from our colleagues from WHO and from other colleagues who are on the ground.
And obviously, there's not anything like the number of medical facilities in Gaza that there were a couple of years ago. And I'm just wondering, for those who can't make this journey and who can't travel across the border into Egypt and get medical attention outside of Gaza, what's it going to mean for them to be stuck there with presumably very, very limited medical facilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is perhaps the most important point that you are raising here. Medical evacuations is really for children who are, or people who are suffering from, who are really critically at risk. And when we see the number, this is only something that is taking place because the health system here in the Gaza Strip is on its knees. I mean, what we're talking about is only half of the hospitals, less than half of the hospitals, which are only partially functioning. The rest has closed or has been destroyed or damaged. So when every time I come to Gaza, it's my sixth or my seventh time here, I go to the hospitals, and I'm always really shocked by the situation, the fact that the equipment is missing, some medical supplies are still missing, and the many children are not getting the health support that they should get. So what I want to say here is that beyond the medical evacuation, beyond the Rafah crossing point, what is really needed is reconstruction. It's actually moving to the next step of the Trump administration plan and to move on to something which is far more sustainable. And here we're talking about the health system, but I'm talking to you all around me. There are thousands and thousands of tents, makeshift tents made of a plastic sheet like this. And those tents are hosting thousands and thousands and thousands of children. We cannot continue like that. They cannot be without proper access to water, toilet, sanitation, for how long, for how many months. So it is really important that now that the ceasefire holds and that we move as soon as possible on something much more tangible for the families to be sheltered in, and that goes as well for the health system, and that goes as well for the education system.
Sure. I mean, you've painted a bleak picture of the humanitarian situation, and we've been talking about how a ceasefire is still in place, and yet dozens of people were killed in Israeli strikes during the course of the weekend, including a number of children. 4 Palestinians were killed today, amongst them a 3-year-old boy. What is the situation on the ground in Gaza? I mean, do you hear daily explosions? Just give us a sense of what it's like there.
It's difficult to summarize how things are happening now, and also to compare it to when I was here during the war. Yes, we can still hear airstrikes, though they are happening at a way lower, much lower frequency than the very intense bombardments that I witnessed when I was here, for example, in May and June 2025. The ceasefire has brought more humanitarian aid, but is that sufficient? No. Because the level, the scale of the destruction, the scale of the damages is so immense that much more need to enter. So the ceasefire is, first of all, still extremely fragile. And I think that everyone, all people, all governments with influence must do everything possible for this ceasefire to hold. And also to make sure that everyone involved in this conflict is also accountable for the fact that this weekend we have seen reports of 6 children being killed in different strikes in the Gaza Strip. And this has to be highlighted. This is not something that can happen in a ceasefire. And this is something that we should be, advocating against. The ceasefire should bring the basis for a stable political solution for the Palestinian children who are here in Gaza. I just want to remind that we are talking about 1 million, a bit less than 1 million children. That's what we are talking about.
Yeah, indeed, a very young population there in Gaza. And just going back to Rafah and the situation there, I mean, for months we've heard reports about a backlog of humanitarian aid that's blocked on the Egyptian side of the border. Is your understanding that this is now going to be unblocked and that humanitarian aid is going to start coming through to Gaza?
So, for the moment, the trucks which are located in Egypt, there are still, some of them enter Gaza via Kerem Shalom, Kerem Abu Salim. So this is something which has happened. To the best of our knowledge, and you know that the situation is evolving always very fast when it comes to the Gaza Strip, but to the best of my knowledge, the Rafah crossing point is not going to witness in the coming days humanitarian aid entering the Gaza Strip via that specific point. What we as UNICEF and all UN agencies, what we are calling for is for all entry points inside the Gaza Strip to be open simultaneously. Because, and I'm going back to the reconstruction here, because if we want to have like sufficient humanitarian aid to address the need of the population, it is all the crossing points, including the Rafah crossing point, that need to open for a very long period of time with improved scanning capacity in order to start fulfilling the needs of the children, and that includes by allowing the entrance of heavy equipment for reconstruction, for example, or high-power generators.
Okay, and of course, Rafah is one of many crossings, and you've said that all of them need to be open. The Kerem Shalom crossing into Israel has been open all the while, has it not, or most of the time? And I'm just wondering to what extent that one crossing point, that key crossing point, has been able to deliver for the people of Gaza.
You know, in complex situations, it's always a question of cursor. And here, what we have seen is that through Kerem Shalom, we have witnessed a substantial increase in the number of trucks and humanitarian aid and commercial trucks entering inside the Gaza Strip. So this is something which has been positive. And for example, just in the past 2 months, UNICEF has been able to bring 1 million blankets, 700,000 kits of warm clothes for children and babies. And you know that there are storms that have affected the area. So what I want to say is that aid has entered and aid is continuing to enter. And is that enough? Not at all. Because once again, let's talk about the support that we're providing in learning. We are providing learning and education support to 135,000 children. But we don't have enough tents, enough high-performance tents, and we don't have enough space, and we don't have enough education supplies to reach out our target, which is at least 350,000 children. So yes, there are improvements. Are these improvements sufficient? No. Are the needs still way higher than what we can provide today? Yes. So this is where we need to continue advocating for more humanitarian aid to enter and also for more funding. It is absolutely critical that funding continues because the situation of the children I meet here every day, it is not solved. The children here are still barefoot. They still only have 1 or 2 change of clothes, and they are still sleeping in damped and flooded tents every 2 or 3 weeks as soon as it's raining a bit.
Okay, well, we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. Thank you very much indeed. Jonathan Cricks, Chief of Communications for UNICEF. Thank you very much indeed.